Hello enemies and book lovers, my name is Ash and welcome back to my channel. For this video I'm going to be doing a wrap up for May and June combined because I have been very much slacking on my videos lately. It's been a very stressful month for me, incredibly stressful. The last few days have been probably one of the worst days of my life, or at least the most stressful days of my life. We're not here for that. I'm going to be enjoying this video and just filming this video and just talk about books. There's I think 16 books on this. I read 8 in May and 8 in June. First, I'm going to start with my May wrap up and my stats for the month. For May, I read a total of 8 books, a total page count of 2,411 throughout the whole month. Average pages a day was 77.77, satisfying, but still not very high for me. Average page count is 301. The most read genre was manga. Instead of fantasy, it's been manga this month. Great, something different. Books with representation is 4, and authors read from before was 5, which is actually pretty low. I read a lot of new books this month. Or sorry, in May, I forgot it's not May right now. My breakdown of star rating, I gave 2 books 4 stars, 2 books 3.5 stars, and that's it because I'm pretty sure the rest of the books I read were manga. So this should be a really fast recap because I'm not gonna go over every single volume. I'm gonna kind of just recap the series I read. 7 of these were backlist and 1 was from last year. For format, 1 was physical, 7 were ebooks. For series, I started 3, I continued 4, and I read 1 standalone. My required breakdown, I got 1 from Kindle Unlimited, 6 from the library, and 1 owned. And for genre breakdown, I read 1 fantasy, 2 romance, 1 horror, and 4 manga. Now, there is going to be a little bit of background noise. I can't really help it. I didn't realize how loud it was until my AC turned off, and now I can hear everything. So, any background noise, I do apologize for. Alright, so from lowest star rating to highest star rating, I'm going to talk about what I read in May. I'm actually going to start with the ones I did not rate, which are manga. I don't usually rate manga unless it's like a 1 or a 5 star. So anything between that, I don't really rate. So to prepare for my manga expedition of May, I read 4 volumes of Spy X Family by Tatsuya Endo. I did in fact enjoy these. I did start the anime, but I wanted to read the manga first, and I actually did enjoy it quite a bit. It was really sweet and funny. It made me laugh out loud a few times. It was a fun time. It was sweet, but I am bad with overhyped books or overhyped series or just hyped series in general. Not even overhyped, just really hyped series in general. Pochita is stabbing me in the back currently. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. I'm not really good with hyped books. I'm usually someone that doesn't like hyped books or doesn't like when books are really hyped up because it makes me have high expectations and then it's not good usually. But with this, I actually do understand why people enjoy it. I don't think it's like my favorite manga series of all time. I mean, I've read a decent amount of manga and watched a lot of anime in my life. So I think for me, maybe because I have a little bit more experience with that, it's not like, this is not incredibly impressive to me. But I really like Berserk. It's probably one of my favorite manga of all time. I also really like Orange. That's more of like a serious contemporary one. So those are like series I enjoy. Very different ends of the spectrum, I know. But those are kind of like the manga kind of I enjoy. This one, I do think it's fun. I think it's cute. It's funny. I'm curious what's gonna happen. I really want like Lloyd and Yor to be together, like just kiss or something. There's so much tension between them. It's so good. But I've only read the first 4 volumes and I am looking forward to continuing it. Like I said, a little bit hyped to me. I don't think I'm as high as the hype is, but it's so wholesome and it's so good and it's a good time. It's just like fun to read when there's like serious stuff. Maybe I should just read that now. I need some fun, wholesome stuff right now in my life, so maybe I'll do that. So let's move on to my novels now, which I read in May. There are 4 that I have to talk about. The first one, I gave a 3.5 stars to. I liked it, but I think I just had different expectations. I do plan on doing a bigger review video on this, so having its own review, so I really won't talk much about it. And this is Angel's Blood by Neeliti Singh. Like I said, don't plan on really talking much about this in this video, because there are things about this book that put very high comparisons to another book, and I need to talk about it. I really need to talk about it. So I think I'm gonna do that in a separate video because I don't want to ramble too much in this one and make it too long. This is a book about a vampire hunter named Elena, and she gets a task by this attractive archangel. Raphael has her do this task to, instead of hunt a vampire, hunt another archangel who's doing these like messed up horrible things. There is a lot of like little tropes in this book. It's just a good time. Like I said, I'm gonna do a whole review on this, and if you want to know more about this book and comparisons to another really popular book series, I would suggest trying this or at least watching that video, and if not, that's fine. But yes, enjoyable. I think I kind of had high expectations, but this is like a 16-part series, so I'm in for the long haul, and I'm going to be reading the second book in July. The next book I also gave 3.5 stars to, although I liked it a little bit more than Angel's Blood, but still a 3.5 stars. I think I rounded it maybe to a 4 because I did enjoy it. That is Long Walk by Stephen King. This is more of a thriller than a horror by Stephen King, and I did enjoy it, but I think I thought I was gonna enjoy it more than I actually did. This follows the main character who purposefully chooses to go into something called the Long Walk, where 100 boys, including himself, go on a walk essentially until one of them is left standing. They have 3 warnings if they aren't fast enough, if they slack behind too much, if they get off course. There's like a truck behind them with people with, you know, pew pew. Yeah, it's a little bit graphic and messed up at times, but most of the book was just them walking, which obviously that's the whole premise of the book, but it wasn't boring, I would say. It's just that there was just moments that I was just kind of stalling to read because I just knew it was gonna be like the same thing. A little bit monotonous, okay, that's what it was. But there were a lot of parts I really enjoyed about it. I think I'm also going to be doing a review for this book. I wanna review every single Stephen King book I read, and so I'm going to do that. So there's not really a point in me talking too much about this as well. So yeah, I'm reading his books in publication order, so I'm happy to have finished this one. Kind of thought I would like it more than I actually did, but I still enjoyed it. All right, so this one was supposed to be a secret TBR video. I had a completely planned out secret TBR video that did not happen because this series got me in a chokehold and I just couldn't stop reading it. So I ended up just forgetting about that idea completely. So this book I gave a 4 stars to, and that is Obsession, which is the first book in the Mate games. This is by Kay Lorraine and Meg Ann. I actually got into reading this because of Maggie's books and stuff. Please check out their channel, especially if you like romance and romantasy and all that fun stuff. Check their channel out. So good. So she got me into this series and then now there's a readathon, kind of like a read along with this. So there's like a Discord, they do sprints that you actually can read the book with them and they react and everything with you. So right now I think they're about to be starting the 2nd book soon. So this is the 1st book. I started doing this like 2 months ago, so I already am on the 3rd book. I read these almost back to back, the first 2 books, but this is a good time. It's a good time. I wouldn't say it's like the best time, but it's a good time. So this is a Why Choose Paranormal Romance series, which I'm always for. I am a lover of Why Choose Paranormal Romance and fantasy romance, although it's more common in the paranormal romance world to see Why Choose books, and this is one of them. I think there are 4 main love interests in this book. There is a werewolf, of 2 vampires, and like a Viking Norse kind of god kind of guy. I'll be honest with you, I read this so fast that I don't remember a whole lot of details, but if you kind of like the paranormal romance kind of Why Choose thing, you'll love this. It kind of reminds me of the ones that tie, just slightly, without the bully romance. There's only one character that's kind of rude to her in the beginning, but it gets a lot better later on. There is just a lot of fun stuff. The smut is good. Some of the nicknames are cringe, but I still enjoy it a lot. There is a trope that I will put up on the screen for like a second, that if you don't want any spoilers about what's going to happen in the series, do not look. But there is a trope that I know people don't enjoy that is in this series that I love. So I'm going to put it on the screen in like 3, 2, 1. Okay, it's gone now. That is something that is kind of like a bigger part later on in the series. So if you don't like that, maybe don't go into this. But if you like that, I would recommend it. I would recommend it wholeheartedly. It is pretty good. It's pretty good. The last book is actually one I physically own. Wow. It's nice to have a book for once. This is the highest rated book I have for the month of May, and this is a 4.25 stars. Yes, not quite a 4.5, but not quite a 4, just right in the middle. This was read for the Catch Up Book Club, and that is Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. This is the 2nd book in the First Law trilogy. I am currently reading The Last Argument of Kings, which is the 3rd and final book in the main trilogy, and I loved this book so much. This is a very character heavy series, or trilogy. Joe Abercrombie is very good at writing characters and just personally, I love the characters. There's not a single character that I just dislike. There are no POVs I hate. I mean, there's ones I like, maybe like more than others, but I am loving it. When I pick these books up, I just don't want to stop reading. They are so good. They just like play really well in my head, and I'm not very good at picturing things in my head all the time when I read books. So he does a really good job of doing that, and I'm just loving it. I can't wait to finish the 3rd book. I'm nervous. I am about a 4th or a 3rd of the way through. I think about a 3rd of the way through the 3rd book, and so I'm hoping I will like the 3rd book even more than this one. Maybe even the first 5 stars of the year, I don't know, but this was a close 4.5 stars. So let's go on now to my June wrap up and talk about what I read in June. My stats for June was actually very similar to May. I read 8 books with a total page count of 2,304 pages, 76 pages average a day. My average page count was 288. My most read genre was fantasy. I knew it was going to come back eventually, and here it is. Books with representation was 5, and authors read from before was 3, which is actually very low for me. The fact that I read a lot of new authors this month, that's actually pretty surprising. I read 3 4.5 star books, 1 4-star book, 1 3.5 star book, and 1 3-star book. I read 2 new releases, 3 backlist, and 3 from last year. 2 of these were physical and 6 of these were ebooks. I started 1 series, I continued 3, and I read 4 standalones. Required breakdown, I read 1 arc, 1 from Kindle Unlimited, 4 library books, and 2 owned books. And for genre, I read 1 romance, 2 manga, 3 fantasy, and 2 contemporary. The fact that most of these are not manga, I'm going to try going through these as fast as possible. So let's go in for this and see how fast I can go, because I'm bad at talking too much. So I'm gonna be editing a lot of this, aren't I? Yep, okay. So for June, I actually finally decided to continue The Promised Neverland Volume 15 and 16 by Kayu Shirai. This series, I've been holding off on this series for way too long. I really need to complete it, and I am finally getting to the ending. These volumes are getting so good. I am kind of like flying through them right now. I would say that the start of the series was really strong. I think along the middle, I was kind of getting a little bit bored or not really that interested in the plot. But as you continue toward the ending, it is getting so good again, and I am just loving everything that's happening. There's so much anticipation to see what's going to happen, and then there are these little things are kind of foretold, but they're trying to like hold it back from you, and you just really want to know what happens next. So I've been picking these up constantly. Unfortunately, I do have a bunch of holds at my library on these books. I think I have to wait like a month and a half for the next volume. It's pretty bad, but I did read the 17th volume already this month in July, and so I have to wait for the 18th volume. I think I have to wait like a month and a half for the 18th volume. I could look at a like ripped copy on the internet, but I don't like doing that. And so I'm just gonna rely on my library and just do it like that. I don't really want to spoil what the premise is about, but it's kind of horror based. We're following a bunch of children in an orphanage, and they obviously get sent off to these families. Eventually though, we find out there is a very, very dark kind of undertone though to this book, and there are obviously things are happening that we don't expect or don't know of until, you know, these characters kind of discover it themselves. I don't really want to talk about what it's about other than that, because I think it's really good to kind of go into it blind, and if you like the horror and like the gruesome and like the whatever aspect, I think it's something that is interesting to try to see if you enjoy it. All right, so moving on to my novels for the month. I have 6 of them, so let's go right into it really quick. So the first one I actually almost finished, so I did rate this at 3 stars, but I did DNF it, unfortunately, and this one is really hard to talk about because it was like one of my biggest anticipations of the year, and it's really unfortunate that I actually ended up DNFing it. And that is The Sun and the Star by Mark Oshiro and Rick Riordan. Unfortunately, I did DNF this book. I got pretty close to the end. I think I had like 100 pages or less left, but I just couldn't do it. I honestly think that the reason why I didn't enjoy it is because Nico did not feel like himself in this book. It was kind of like in his POV for the first time, and I do understand that like he has like a lot of things happening with him. He has a lot of dark things happening to him in his past, and he has a lot of thoughts that aren't always positive, but I think that he just felt really out of character for me in a way that made me not like him. He was complaining constantly, and he just didn't like Will for the smallest things. He kept like getting mad at Will for like no reason, and it kind of started to just throw me off, and it really started to annoy me. There were a lot of parts I did enjoy though. I think a lot of the discussion on, you know, mental health and sexuality and everything in this book was incredibly done. I loved that so much, and I think this is something I would definitely read to my future children one day because it has a lot of important topics in it. I just personally don't think I liked a lot of I just didn't love it. I really wanted to push through it, but I didn't want to force myself to read a book I didn't enjoy. So unfortunately, I DNF'd this. I didn't love it, but I can understand why a lot of people would. If you want to give it a shot, I really do recommend it. It is like a 500-page book, right? Yeah, it's almost 500 pages, so it is a bigger book. And so it was just kind of just hard for me to get through it. I really wish I liked it more than I did, and just unfortunate I didn't. So the next book I gave a 3.5 stars to, which I didn't love either, but it's for different reasons than Sun and the Star, and that is Spear by Nicola Griffith. This one, like I said, is not because I didn't enjoy it. This book made me feel dumb. I don't know why I delivered it like that, but that is honestly just the truth. It kind of read like a classic in a sense. Like the writing was really, really not whimsical, but it just felt kind of reminded me of like a Song of Achilles, where it kind of feels like a classic or like a textbook, where it doesn't feel very like easy to get through, and that made it really hard for me to read. I'm not usually a huge fan of those types of books. Even like Laini Taylor's books, Strange the Dreamer and stuff like that, similar as well. So Strange the Dreamer, Song of Achilles, that's what this kind of reminds me of in that writing style. I think the best part of this book though, like the best thing, was the fight scenes. Oh my god, Nicola Griffith can write a fight scene. There was like a jousting scene and then another scene on a horse, and they were done so beautifully well that I would read, if Nicola Griffith did like a high fantasy series, I would probably still try it. Just following a female character who, I don't know her sexuality, but she finds herself interested in women, and so as she's going along this journey, she kind of finds herself interested in different women until she eventually finds someone. she's also pretending to be a male character, and she's kind of just like going through these little adventures and like traveling and finding these different areas, kind of pretending to be a man when she's actually a woman. And so I find that kind of interesting. It kind of reminded me of Mulan, which is one of my favorite Disney movies as a child. If she writes more books, I will try them. My brain is bad at absorbing these type of writing style, but I will try. If she ever does this again, I will try. The next book I gave a 3.75 stars to is The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakavic. And this is a series, or like a trilogy, that I don't really know much about, or I didn't know much about going into it. I knew it was like a darker sports contemporary kind of book, and honestly that is pretty much perfect way to describe this. Following Neil, who grew up in a very bad environment, and he finds his only kind of sense of happiness or like self within Exi, I believe that's what it's called. I don't remember exactly, but it's like a form of lacrosse and hockey. There's obviously a lot of darker topics within this book, and there are a little bit of problematic parts to this. I mean, there's words used that we shouldn't be using anymore, or we don't usually use anymore, thankfully. But yeah, this is definitely an outdated book with a lot of the terms that are used. I averaged this out to a 4 stars, and it was a 3.75 in general. I really couldn't choose between a 3.5 and a 4 because I didn't really think either of those worked, so I just went in the middle of it. I do like Neil. I want to kind of know more about Andrew because he's a bit interesting. Andrew is also my brother's name. I'm pretty good at separating people from real life to book characters, so whenever I read about Andrew, I never even thought about my brother. It was actually pretty easy to thankfully separate them, or else it would just be incredibly awkward. If my brother did what the character in the book did, I would be greatly concerned for my brother's health, and I am very much troubled over Andrew's health as well in the book, so there's that. I am actually worried about all of these characters' health because these poor guys, these poor boys, they go through way too much. I am planning on continuing this trilogy, and I would like to finish it before the year is over. I'm not sure if I will, but I'm going to try my best to do that, and I think it will get better as it goes, and I think it will get darker as it goes. So there's that. Let's ignore the wood chipper in the background if you can, if it's possible. And let's get into the next book. The next book I actually really enjoyed. I gave this a 4.5 stars, and this is Give Me a Sign by Anna Sortino. I mentioned this in my TBR video, but I was so excited about this. I got this as an ARC on NetGalley. This will be releasing on July 11th, so very soon, if not already by the time I post this video. This is following a character who is hard of hearing, and she goes to a summer camp. She becomes one of the counselors at the summer camp and kind of tries to discover if she's deaf enough, because she is not completely deaf, but she's also not completely hearing. She uses her hearing aid, and so she has a hard time kind of going between what kind of side she belongs to and if she is really technically part of the deaf community because of herself not really believing that she may be. There were a lot of things brought up in this book and talked about that people who are deaf or hard of hearing or anyone within that range goes through, and there were some things in this I was aware of and things in this I wasn't even close to even realizing was a thing. I already knew a lot about what this book was referring to and talking to. I knew some of the signs in this book because I'm currently studying ASL, so I found this to be really cool to read. I was trying to learn the signs as I was reading it, as the characters were speaking. I was trying to sign along if I could, and it was really cool for me to be able to do that. Obviously I don't know many. I'm still pretty much a beginner, but it was really nice to read a book about characters who were signing, and I really want to see more of that. There were a lot of topics touched upon, and there are some people that didn't like that because there is a few things brought up that seems a bit unnecessary, like randomly just bringing up these issues that might just seem coming out of nowhere. But I actually did enjoy them because it helps people learn that there are things that people go through that is not justified. There's one character in the book who uses sign language as his only means of conversation and being able to speak to people. A police officer arrests him, and there are actually cases of this in real life where cops arrest people who are deaf or use ASL as their only way of communication. In doing so, you're taking the right away from them to speak, which is a literal right. They have the right to be able to speak, and taking that away by handcuffing them, especially in a situation where they don't even need to be handcuffed, it makes it so that way they can't talk at all. That is one of those topics brought up. There's like a number of them, so I think it's really important to read this kind of book, and it's something that I would love to read more of, and I really hope the author decides to write more because I would love to. Okay, so the next book doesn't really need much of an introduction. This is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. We all really know what this book is about. It's a cozy fantasy. It's one of those books that kind of started the whole cozy fantasy rise lately. We're following an orc who goes on these adventures, and she kind of discovers that she kind of wants to relax and leave that life behind her, so she kind of just opens up a coffee shop. Just like so wholesome and sweet. I thought the other character was a tiefling. She's not a tiefling, she's a succubus, so I got that completely wrong. I was in my own Dungeons and Dragons brain and I got it wrong. There are so many amazing characters, so many side characters I loved. There was like a part in the book that like ripped my heart out and I was like devastated. I was like, I came here for a cozy fantasy and you make me feel hurt. The audacity. But thankfully that all gets taken care of and it's a happy ending and that makes me happy. I don't think I'm gonna read the prequel. I think this book was really good at standalone. So personally, I don't think I'm gonna read the prequel, but I understand why people would because it is a very, very sweet standalone. And I did enjoy it. I think that the hype is understandable. It also just made me want to eat baked goods. I'll be honest with you. I have a donut over there, so I might go and do that after this video. I gave it a 4.5, but round it down to a 4 because I am so picky with my 5 stars, it's actually sad. And because I already mentioned this series, I'm only going to say it for like a second. And the last book in this video is going to be Rejection, which is the second book in the Mate Games series. I already talked about this, so there's not much to say, but this one follows mostly Kingston, who is the werewolf kind of character. The first one is Noah, who is the vampire. The third one, which is what I'm on, is Alec, who is like the Nordsman. And then the fourth one is Caleb, who is like the priest vampire. This one I actually enjoyed a little bit more than the first book. I actually do like Kingston. I mean, I didn't love him in the beginning, but I really like him in this book. He's very sweet and, you know, he's a bit weird at times, but he's sweet. The relationship between the guys in this series like develops in a way that is just so funny. Last night I was reading and I was just laughing out loud in bed, especially after like a hard time. It's really nice to just read a book I'm just gonna be laughing about because it's just a good time. This is kind of like a Fated Mates series. The guys at first don't really want to be involved with the same person because they kind of want to be with her alone. And as it goes on, they kind of understand, you know what, this is something we have to do together because she's all of our mates and either none of us are with her or all of us are with her. And they eventually decide that all of them are better than none of them. And so they have like eventually like this friendship. Would I call it a friendship? I think so. It's just like this really funny relationship between the guys where they're just like tolerating each other, but in a way that's like kind of friendly. It's weird, but I kind of love it. I don't want to spoil this book, so I won't say really anything about the premise of this one, but it's a fun time. And thank you, Maggie, for opening my eyes to this because every single Why Choose recommendation is a win in my book. Well, if it's good. If it's like really bad, then I don't want that. Please don't. Unless it's like Den of Vipers, then I would say don't recommend that to me, please. I don't think I want to do that to myself, and if I did, it would only be for content, and that's it. So that is it for my wrap up for the month of May and June. I apologize for having this up so late and I'm hoping I can try my best to film more if I can. It depends on my stress level. I'm gonna try my best to film when I can and if I can. Thank you everyone who's been giving me like well wishes on Instagram and everything. You guys are amazing. I really have no one in my life anymore other than my boyfriend. I have no friends or family anymore. So thank you. Well, I do, but they're not like really there for me or they're not really like there in person for me. So I appreciate you all for being amazing and always just being there for me. I honestly just appreciate you more than you can imagine. I don't know, I'm being so cheesy. I'm gonna stop being cheesy. I just appreciate you. Thank you. Just thank you. I hope you all had a great few months of reading. I've been trying to catch up on all your videos. If you are a booktuber, if you're not a booktuber, just thank you for being here. I appreciate you for everything. And with that, I hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great reading month and I hope to see you all soon. Goodbye everyone.